Hello, Marti. Lovely to have you here on this author interview for our book, How to Be a Six-Star Business. So good to see you today.
Great to see you, Av, always. Thanks for having me here, and it's going to be good to talk to you.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so excited. I love meeting with our authors and getting to know them. And the whole point of this is for others to get to know you. So just to get started, I thought I'm going to throw it over to you and ask you to share with us. So who are you? Where are you in the world? Who do you serve? And tell us something that you like to do outside of work.
Oh, fun. Okay, that's great. My name's Marti Spiegelman. I'm in California, just north of San Francisco. I am out in the countryside where we have very poor internet, hence we're recording on Zoom tonight after quite a journey to get here. Now what I do, I work with the principles of consciousness, and my work now in the world is to work with change makers, professional leaders, people who really want to do something radical, and they're tired of status quo. They're noticing how things are not working, and they don't know quite how to manifest the change, but they know they can do it. So my job is to help people change the world by helping them first change how they know the world. And we do this with awareness training and a huge body of wisdom from indigenous cultures about the technologies of consciousness. So that's my work now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Fabulous. Fabulous. And tell us something that you like to do outside of work. I could hardly call that work because that just sounds like, yeah. So
it's fun. It is hard work sometimes, but it's fun. And actually, this is part of why I got into what I do. One thing I love to do outside of work is to take my summer vacations in the Arctic when there's 24-hour daylight and the caribou are migrating and the tundra's blooming and all the wild things are out. And we just float a river for a day, and then we hike, and then we float, and then we hike, and then we float. And we get as close to the northern coast of Alaska. Sometimes it's been Siberia, as close as we can get to the northern oceans. That's what I absolutely love.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure everyone who heard that just suddenly got transported to this other place, because let's face it, there's only a small number of people who've been there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And I'm very, very fortunate to have had so many opportunities. The thing that I found when I first went north is that the land spoke to me. Literally, the earth spoke. It's so energetic and energized, and you can feel the magnetic field of the earth and see the curvature of the planet. And for me, I suddenly was part of something huge. I don't think I ever felt belonging until that moment. I never understood Earth until that moment. And I think that, looking back, that was really what ignited what I do now.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How powerful and wow, moving. It's really moving. Thank you.
And when I talk about it, it's very moving for me too. It's really, really something. People think that they talk about conscious business and being a conscious leader and all of this stuff, but in the modern world, very few people actually get from those ideas to the earth. And like it or not, our connection to literally to the planet and the energies that the planet is, that is what sparks actual consciousness. If we just think about it and dictate some things to our employees and say, this is our new policy, you won't be a conscious business. There's another big connection that has to happen, and has to change awareness and change how we respond to everything around us. And then we're talking about consciousness.
Wow. Can't wait to get further into this. So could you describe to me in perhaps a sentence, also, how would you describe yourself in a sentence, Marti, if you could?
Oh my goodness. Myself in a sentence probably won't fit. How would I describe myself? I think I describe myself as a child of the planet, of nature, and of universal forces.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. What is your chapter about?
My chapter is about being conscious. And, this is such a huge topic. Everybody wants it in a sentence or two. So my chapter is about this initial experience of connection, really. And I start off with that statement that just because we say we have a conscious business, it doesn't mean it really is a conscious business. So I gradually introduce this idea that where this all starts is how we use awareness, and is our awareness connecting us into the world? Or does our awareness just self-reflect and leave us in a thinking bubble, but not really connected? So my chapter is about how you get connected and what automatically happens when you are connected via awareness. So it's very, very, it's like a toe dip into the subject of consciousness. And I talked about my first experience that I remember. I was 2 years old when I remember this. And I used to imagine my way every night to the edge of the universe because everybody told me the universe had an edge. And I would get there every night. And I found a membrane and I'd sort of poke it. And I thought, how could there be nothing beyond this? I can't imagine nothing. It was impossible for me to imagine nothing. And so I would always just punch right through the membrane and there would be more universe and more stars and more galaxies. And more. It was infinite. And somehow, I was only 2. I barely had much language at the time. So it was purely experiential, right? And somehow, I think that planted the seed in me of being connected into the universe, that we belong to something bigger.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't really getting that from family life. It was very complex how I grew up. But I remember going into the universe that way. And I think gradually as I've grown and matured, that memory has stuck with me, that wired me in some way. And I can look back now and say that going out into the universe like that, I didn't end up lost in space, but I ended up here. And this seems to be true as I train people. As we get our awareness out into the world, we actually find ourselves. And we find ourselves in relationship with something bigger that takes care of us instead of us trying to take care of and manage everything else. We get taken care of.
Yeah.
And it changes everything.
Yeah. What would, that sounds absolutely huge. Like you said at the start, a very big subject.
Yeah.
What is something that a reader can take away from your chapter, like an aha or some kind of thing?
Yeah. The biggest thing to take away from my chapter is try it out, right? Yes, it gets very complex. It's all lovely and all that stuff, but it starts with, can you have an experience in nature outside of yourself without thinking? That is that simple and it's that difficult. The most primary, if you will, exercise that you find in indigenous cultures is this idea of finding a spot in nature, and it becomes your spot, someplace where you can sit comfortably for a long time, and we hope it's on the ground where you're sitting. And the practice is to experience your whole surroundings through your senses. No thinking, no story running in your head, no blah, 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 blah. No, this is this and that's that. No merging with anything. No, I became the tree. That's not it. Extending your awareness into the whole surroundings and experiencing the kinesthetic aspects, the sounds, the sights, the tastes, the smells, the textures, the movements, the energies. No thinking. So that's the big exercise, but there's a little exercise that people can try. And this is my favorite one because I do a lot of cooking. So my favorite exercise, tiny exercise, is when you go grocery shopping, put your awareness on whatever produce you're buying and feel its energy. You have to take all of your awareness off yourself and experience the produce. You will know instantly which is the sweetest fruit, which is the tastiest vegetable. Do your shopping that way and see what happens to you.
That is wonderful. Wow. I can't wait to do this. How did you feel when you were writing the chapter?
It's really difficult for me to write about this because it's such a big topic, really. And I rarely share that story of me being 2 years old and going to the edge of the universe. So I thought, well, this will be really interesting. Now I'm sharing the story with the world. so it was kind of a tender experience, but for me, it's difficult to narrow the topic down to create an entry point, and I hope I've accomplished that. And I think really the entry point is how we use awareness. It makes all the difference. Yeah. So I tried to keep it just to that this is the issue. If our awareness is working one way, we miss everything. If it's working another way, we get everything.
That's great. So you're really trying to focus on how to keep this as simple as possible for someone who has no understanding of this topic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be great. What's been the most important skill that you've learned along your journey to get to where you are now?
I probably would say, if I understand your question, I would say it was my training in design. And this is hindsight. I have training in science and training in all these different arenas, but my training in design, and again, it took me a while to realize this, was a training in experiencing energy. Because graphic design, it's the art of making the invisible visible. It's the art of making information visible. And you have to understand information and be able to organize it properly, because if the information is not organized properly, no design will fix it. But there's more to it. It's how you take the visible pieces and put them on a page or on a website, and what energy is in the spaces. And how have you organized visual signals? And all of this has to do with using awareness, putting awareness on the world and picking up data that is in energy and picking up data that's in interactions. In design, there's an interaction between space and counter space, between a color and a background, all kinds of things interacting. And really the world is this way and consciousness is this way. So I think that was an extraordinary skill. I didn't realize till much later, but I think that really informs a lot of how I understand consciousness and teach it.
Absolutely. Just hearing you describe it, I can see now that skill has enabled you to understand, like you said, space, time, information, and being able to translate it and see it in certain ways that initially you may not be able to see. So it's having that understanding and openness of not projecting a particular perception initially on something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really powerful. That's huge.
Yeah, these things, that's what I find about consciousness is in one way, if we come at it in one way, if we're too intellectual, it just seems too slippery, like consciousness. And when suddenly we're subjective and it's my definition versus yours and stuff. But if we can get a taste of energy, if we can discern between an experience and our response to an experience, if we can use our senses and be in a dynamic that doesn't require language, then something starts to click. And a whole, I don't know, it's not just one dimension, 1,000 dimensions of experience and reality and information and energies opens up. And it's right here all the time. But if we're thinking and strategizing all the time, we can't touch it. We don't know it's there.
I can see how the chapter itself, not only the topic is so big, but it's also something for someone who's new to this. It would totally challenge their thinking or their understanding of how to reach success.
Mhm.
It's not a cognitive 3-step process.
Right. Yeah. So I break all the rules. I don't have 12 steps to nirvana. I don't have 3 steps to happiness. I say you have to put all the steps aside and you have to experience, you have to connect and experience first. And then what happens is the 3 steps or 12 steps, whatever you need, emerges through you as you engage your area of expertise. If I take somebody else's framework, their steps or whatever, it's come from a different coordinate in space and time. It's emerged out of somebody else's information. And it probably doesn't really apply to my information. That's why so many times systems, they sound really good, but they actually don't work for very many people. Yeah. So in this way, I mean, to me, being a 6-star business, a 6-star leader is becoming that conduit for consciousness. So as the universe flows all that energy and information through you, it kicks up what you know about your expertise and mixes it with new information and new energies. And you gradually realize yourself what your best framework is for your business and your service and your product.
Wow. That's gold, Marti. Love it.
Consciousness is amazing.
Yes, I'm just excited by this. What's been your greatest challenge along your journey to this point?
The greatest challenge has been bringing all of this from the indigenous world into the Western world. You know, I had the download. I remember I was sitting in a little village square in the Sacred Valley in Peru, having a cappuccino with my Peruvian friends, and it hit me that all of these principles, it's exactly what we need in business, what people are looking for. And then, you know, I said, oh, I'm going to bring this to business people. It's going to be fabulous. And then it was like one brick wall after the other, because this was about 12 years ago or more. And people were not as open as they are today. There's been a lot of change in the world. And there are more people sensing there's something else and more people open to new ideas. But when I first started, bless my heart, I just charged right in there and said, here's this program for your consciousness. And people would shake pencils at me. There was one guy who, it's like, you can't say those kind of things in this room. It was hysterical. So people loved to hear me talk, but then they would kind of shuffle me aside like I was an oddity. And it was actually during that time that I learned who my real client is. And I think, you know, anybody who's going out in the world with a radical idea, something new and fresh and powerful, and you know that it's correct, don't be afraid to have a bunch of wrong clients. You have to try it out on people to see who's ready, because what we're doing is we're seeking out those resonant energies that we can't intellectualize. I had to feel my way to the people who were actually open.
Yeah.
So it wasn't wasted time, but boy, that was challenging.
Definitely. And what's been the biggest gift along your journey?
Oh, I think for me, the biggest gift, well, there's actually 2 biggest gifts. One is the opportunity to work directly with Indigenous elders. And that seems to have come from the spirit realm. I didn't seek it out. It arrived. And I don't know, bigger forces in the universe brought that. But I think really my biggest gift, aside from that, it's people like you, people who show up and who are bright stars and who are open and are learning and are reaching out with beautiful things like the 6-star business community. And it's a huge gift to me. It really, really is.
That's beautiful to hear. I've got one more question for you. Okay. What does being 6-star mean to you, and why is it so important?
Oh, you know, I have this thing that I say, don't just work ahead of the curve, be the maker of the curve. That's being 6-star to me. Yeah. 6-star to me is another dimension of consciousness. So clearly the easy part is that being a 6-star business or 6-star leader means you actually are fully conscious, that you know it, you know how to be conscious, you know how awareness works, you're using the organizing principles, you're really developing something that is collective and constantly producing value. That's what consciousness does, constantly produces abundance, right? But it also reaches beyond known horizons. And so 6 stars, that's another dimension. It's another dimension of consciousness, of capacity, of creative genius. That's what the 6 star is for me. And we're designed to do that. We're designed to constantly evolve. So it's an evolutionary statement. It's a nudge to everybody. Don't stay where you are. It's evolutionary.
That's it. Just like nature, we can't stay still. Yeah. We are nature. We are evolutionary.
Exactly. Yeah. And that brings us back to that experience of membership. If we can feel the membership, we're actually part of that stuff out there. We're part of that big system. And if we experience that, then we reach for 6 star. We may not even know the term 6 star yet, but we'll reach for it because that's what consciousness does.
Marti, I wish I could talk to you for another hour on this, or 10.
Likewise.
It's so fascinating. And I just want to thank you so much. I hope that everyone who's read your chapter or who's going to read your chapter is as inspired as me. And I can't wait to see the impact that your work makes on others and how we collectively can take that, our 6 star movement, and ripple it out across the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ab. And thank you for 6 star, for that ripple. It's going to be really, really big. Very, very happy to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. I'm really grateful. I appreciate your time today, Marti, and I will speak with you very soon.
A pleasure. Thank you.